Hi, in this video I'll show you how to connect to the database using Java libraries. So we'll be connecting to Derby database, which is embedded database. Let's create a project. So you can only do these steps if you have already set up embedded Derby database on your machine. I'll give project name ConnectDB. I'll use JDK 10.0.2 for this project and click finish. I do not want to create module info file, don't create. Okay, and I have my project. It's using correct JDK. Everything looks good. So now I'll create a package. Right, just keep it same name as project name, that's okay. And I'll create a class called queries. So this is the class that will have all my queries, all the connection to the database and so on. So for this video, we're only focusing on creating connection to the database. So for this, I already have prepared something for me that I can use. So I will need to have URL to the database, username and password. So here you can decide what name for database you're going to use. So in my case, I'll just call it DB sample. For username, I'll use user, and for password, I'll just use password string. So what else do I need? I also need a connection object to have the connection to the database. It has to come from this library Java SQL. Alright, so Java SQL connection. And I will create a constructor using fields, connection. Alright, and in the constructor I will initialize this connection object. So I have something like that. I need to import driver manager. Also is coming from Java SQL libraries. And I need to provide 3 parameters to this driver manager. URL that we define right here, username, and password. Alright, so now it's still giving me error because it's a checked exception. So we need to handle it or delay it. So we will surround it with try and catch, like so. And save. So now that I have this, I can create driver class and I can try initializing this queries object, which in its turn will try to create the connection to the database. Let's see what's going to happen when I do that. Class, driver, and I need main method because this will be the starting point of my application. So right now it's empty. Let me save the files and let me run it. So nothing is happening. Terminate it. So let me create queries object. So now when I'm creating this object, I'm calling the constructor. When I call the constructor, I am creating the connection. So this will be our first test to see if connection is working. Let me run the driver class. Okay, so I'm getting error, no suitable driver found for this database DB sample. So I am missing a driver. I need to add a library, a Derby library into my project, so I have the driver for this database. If you right click on the project, go to build path, configure build path. Here, if you have this module path, then select module path, add external jars, navigate to the Derby library that you have. For me, it's version 10.14.2. For you, use whatever you installed on your machine. Open, apply and close. So now I have the two things here, JDK 10.0.2 and Derby 10.14.2. For you, it will be your version of Derby. Apply and close. To double check if this got imported into my project, I can see here's my Derby and some other Derby jars as well. So this time we had this exception here, no suitable driver found. Let's run it again and see what will happen now. So now I see a different type of error. It says database was not found. So the connection was done, but it could not find the database because we did not create the database yet. To create the database, you have to navigate to your project folder, System Explorer, and you have to be at this level over here. Here we will create SQL file. I'll call it db sample.sql. So you are prompted then to confirm that you want to change the extension of the file to SQL, which is correct, right? And now I want to modify it. So I'll right click on it and say edit. All right, so here we will create some query for the database so we can run it later to create the database, to create the tables. I'll get a sample SQL from another project. So I'll copy these lines from here and put it in my DB sample SQL. So I will change the name of the table to something else, for example, paper. So, and I will have paper ID, paper color, maybe let's make it smaller. paper size. And maybe let's create paper price. And this one is going to be integer. Alright, so now I have to change the column names here. And remove this last one. So for price, I will just keep it as integer for this example. For paper size, let's say letter size, this is A4. Paper color, white. This one, let's make this one yellow. So save the file and you can close it now. So here in the same window, this file I don't need anymore, so I can delete. I only need DB sample SQL. So in this window, we want to open command prompt. Right, so it's pointing to that window. And I have sample commands ready. So I need this command to run the tool to be able to connect to the database. Let me try that again. Alright, I'm connected to the database. Now I need to actually, sorry, I'm only connected to the tool that allows me interacting with database. And now I need to connect to my database. So I'll change this to, what did we create? Paper. Oh, sorry, it has to be exactly the same name as in my file here, my program. So, and then it's user and password. And for user, it will be user. And for password, it's going to be password. All right. So make sure these names correspond to your whatever you defined in your application. Run it. The statement create equals true will create the database for us. All right, so now we need to run our SQL file. And the name for that SQL file is, let me find it. Alright, it looks good, but I can double check by running select command. Select from paper. So I can see my two entries are still there. So let's go back to our project and let's run it again. Getting different type of error. It's saying failed to start database. Failed to start database. Another instance of Derby may have already booted the database. So this is because I haven't exited from here. So let me type exit. Let's go back to my project and run it again. This time everything looks good. I didn't get any more errors. So to me, this is indication that connecting to the database worked fine. So the next step will be to create the queries, try to retrieve the data from the database. But that will be in a separate video.